We're not doing that one. Not doing that one either. Well, there's one thing about Luke, he's Beatle mad.
Everybody, I just walked in the door from seeing Ringo Starr at the Cobb Energy Performing Arts Center in Atlanta, Georgia, September 19th, 2022. I'm really glad I went. I've seen Paul McCartney before. I think it was in 1989. That was great. But I'd never seen Ringo, and of course I miss George, and I won't see George or John. So I dropped everything and went, and the tickets weren't cheap, and I had lousy seats. I did take some footage you'll be able to see, but I don't think it's very good, but you can kind of get a sense of the concert. Just a couple things. First, it was great to see Ringo. He's 82, man alive. He was out there dancing and jumping around. A couple things I noticed. His voice, I don't think he ever sang over, he had a kind of a lower mid-range, and he never sang out of it, and it was great. You know, he didn't hit any high notes. And I think he was like that 40 or 50 years ago, and he's really like that now, and it didn't matter. You know, he was great. He did It Don't Come Easy and Photograph. He did, you know, a bunch of his Beatles songs like I Want to Be Your Man. And
I want to be your man.
Yellow Submarine, Octopus's Garden. He closed with a little help from my friends. Those were so great. And he also always does some good 50s songs. You know, I was reminded he is a 50s rocker, and he was a couple years older than the Beatles, and back in the Hamburg days, a few years makes a difference. He really has a sense of those old 50s rockers. He did that one, Boy, which is my baby says when a boy kisses a girl, they take a trip around the world. But I knew that song because there was a really good rock band in Detroit that used to play around when I was like around 20. And they played that song, and sometimes they really made the lyrics dirty. But it was just great to hear him do that song. I think and his band was great. He had Steve Lukather, and he was great. You know, one thing I always thought Steve Lukather was kind of like Larry Carlton or Pat Metheny, one of these really good studio guitarists, which he is, and there's nothing wrong with that. Those guys are great. But he got out there, he was playing old-time rock and roll, a lot of like old blues and kind of rockabilly type stuff really well. And he had some nice guitars that sounded really good. And my favorite was, other than Ringo, was Edgar Winter. So I got to see Edgar Winter, and that was great.
All right. Is everybody having a real good time so far this evening? Me too. Well, if you know me at all, you probably know I started out originally playing piano and organ, and at a certain point, I just got fed up, really frustrated, being stuck behind a big bank of keyboards. Nobody can see what you're doing. So I just happened to be the first guy to get the simple, obvious idea of putting a strap on the keyboard, making me the first person in musical history to do this. wrote this song to feature the synthesizer called Frankenstein. Are you ready for the monster? Anybody told me once upon a time that work with a doctor named Frankenstein.
And that was great. And he kind of brought it back to the early 70s. He still has that long hair, and he did Frankenstein and he did Free Ride. And then towards the end, he got out and did Johnny Be Good and dedicated it to his brother. And he has a new album coming out, My Brother Johnny, which is a tribute to Johnny Winter. And he did Johnny Be Good, which I think is on that album. And he was great to see. He is a really good keyboard player, almost like Rick Wakeman or something, but he also plays all that old American style rock and roll so well, you know. Doing all those kind of Dr. John, I was going to say Floyd Kramer type licks, but of course Floyd Kramer's country, but a lot of those really old, great classic rock piano riffs. And then they had a guy from Men at Work. I can't even think of his name. I'll put it on the screen. But I remembered Men at Work because when I was about 21, I was in a band, and we did that song, Who Can It Be Now? And I think we did The Land Down Under, and at the time, I didn't really like them, but even back then when we did them, I realized that they were pretty well done songs. The other guy they had was from the Average White Band. I don't know if you remember the Average White Band, but he all the members of the All-Starr band kind of had their own biography, and they all kind of highlighted some of the songs from their past. And the guy from the Average White Band got up there with the band and did Pick Up the Pieces and Cut the Cake, which I remember from, that was really good. The Average White Band, I think they used to call it Blue Eyed Soul, or is that kind of shuffle funk, kind of rock funk, I don't know what you'd call it, but really good. And I remember the Average White Band when that they were popular in the mid-70s. But of course, the best thing of all was just seeing Ringo Starr. So I got to say I saw him. He was great, really. And the band was so good. I mean, the band, I came away thinking maybe it really is true. The older musicians are better because they were just playing. They did Toto Africa. They did Hold the Line. They did, which kind of hard songs to do, I would say. They did Rosanna. Steve Lukather sang those. They did those Average White Band songs. So those are pretty well sophisticated songs. I would say they have their nuances, Edgar Winter did Frankenstein and Free Ride, and it just sounded like old time rock and roll from like 1973, 74 when he got up there, and he had that long hair like that Igor guy in Rocky Horror Picture Show, that long hair. He was kind of up there and talked to the crowd. He had that keyboard that he wears on his waist like a guitar almost. And just an outstanding band. They had a pretty tight show. Ringo left the stage for a little while, which was okay because the band was the feature, And Ringo was actually playing the drums a lot and not out front. And I don't know if anyone minded that, but then I thought to myself, well, he's a drummer. You know, he sang. That's what he's always done. He sang a few songs and played the drums, and so he was up there playing the drums. They had another guy on drums. I should have written all that down, but they had another guy on drums. But he was back there playing the drums, having a great time, running around. And when he got up to sing, boy, the people, everybody loves Ringo. Me too. And you could just feel the love in the room. They even did a little touch of "Give Peace a Chance" at the end. So he definitely highlighted some of his Beatles songs. But my favorite of the night was that old 50s song, "Boy." My baby says when a boy kisses a girl. It's a really good old 50s rock song. And like I said, I grew up hearing that a lot. It's an outstanding... Oh, you know, it's not Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, but it's a good old 50s rocker, kind of a, you know. And whenever I hear Ringo, he reminds me of how good 50s rock was and how we kind of put it in a box with just a few artists like, you know, Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, as great as those people were, but there were a bunch of great songs. And Ringo, that's his... You know, I know that's his background, is all that great old 50s rock. So he did not do "You're 16." I was a little disappointed. I've always loved that song. And he didn't do "No, No, No, I Don't," the "No, No, No" song. I was wondering if that's become politically incorrect or something, but he didn't do the "No, No, No" song. I don't think he did "Back Off Boogaloo." I noticed he was doing it some other nights, but I don't think he did it. But just a really, really good concert, and I'm so glad I went. It was not cheap, but it was still worth seeing. Thanks. God bless.